Follow us at Civic Center TV on Twitter and Civic Center TV 15 on Facebook. Civic Center TV, television that's close to home. Stay tuned for the Splash Live. It's time for the Splash Live from Civic Center TV, featuring stories from and about people like you in the Greater West Bloomfield area. Simulcast on cable, 89.3 Lakes FM, social media, and the web. Now live from Green Media Center on Walnut Lake Road, it's the Splash Live.
Live, local, social, it's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Welcome, friends and neighbors. I'm Tyler Kieft. Thank you so much for joining us. We start off close to home with a traffic alert in Orchard Lake and West Bloomfield. What's become a regular summer interruption on Orchard Lake will once again usher in the dog days of summer throughout a key portion of Orchard Lake Road. Beginning Thursday, tomorrow, August 14th, Orchard Lake Road between Pontiac Trail and Long Lake will undergo resurfacing, which means another portion of Orchard Lake Road is about to face a slowdown. The work will be done with flaggers on the street to direct traffic, at least in one lane at a time, going both directions. So expect delays through late August, according to the Road Commission for Oakland County. They estimate traffic backups could be heavy in this particular area of our community, so leave extra time on your commute. Take detours whenever possible in that surrounding area, and make sure to have patience. Be a passenger if this is on your route from A to Z throughout our community. For continued updates on this project and others on Orchard Lake and other areas throughout Greater West Bloomfield, you can follow the Road Commission for Oakland County. Scan the QR code on your screen from this traffic alert from the Road Commission for Oakland County. Follow them on Facebook at RoadCom, that's Road, C-O-M-M, or follow their website for more information on traffic updates across Oakland County. That is rcocweb.org. We're just over 2 weeks away from the opening night of the football season at West Bloomfield High School, when the Lakers will take on the Tractors of Dearborn-Fordson. Close to home in the OAA Red Division, expect another grind of a season ahead where any of the 5 teams could come out as eventual champions of this league. That following an exciting, historic photo finish at the end of the 2024 regular season. That had some major playoff implications. At the recent OAA Football Media Day, I had a chance to speak to the Orion Neighborhood Television's Sammy Termina, the host of the OAA Now podcast, for an outlook on the Lakers' competition in 2025. As we look at the season for your Lake Orion Dragons, for our West Bloomfield Lakers, the OAA Red, again, one of the toughest divisions in the state of Michigan. What are you expecting from the Red in 2025 after what was arguably the most competitive season ever in 2024?
You know, I still call this the group of death. I mean, like, you think about in soccer terms, I mean, that's basically what it is. I mean, like, you really look at it. You know, every team's got a strength, every team's got a weakness. When you look at, of course, the this division, I mean, like, you look at West Bloomfield, I mean, they remind me almost similar to North Farmington, especially with Jamal Shakespeare playing the role of Terrence James. And then you look at a team like Oxford, obviously Jack Hendricks back. Clarkston, we know, has got they're loaded. They got a lot of players back, but I still got concerns about that defense. Lake Orion, this Lake Orion team reminds me of the team I was on back in 2005 when we won a we won a district championship and we beat Clarkston twice in 1 year. So, you know, this Lake Orion team, I mean, like, you know, they're pretty much under the radar. They one of the most unknown that people need to know about.
you think there's any one team in this division that does stand out? It could be that team that we look toward later on this season with West Bloomfield and say, that's going to be probably the toughest game on the schedule.
Last year Oxford was predicted to finish last, and they won the division. So you kind of think about you can't really, any of these 5 teams can win this division. You look at the talent in this division, the schedules that everybody has. It would not surprise me that all 5 teams in the red make the playoffs this year again. And I think that's really what I think is going to happen. And you know what I mean? And I really think with a team that, with all 5 of these teams, there's no doubt in my mind I think these 5 teams will make the playoffs.
As Laker Nation gets ready for Week 1 on August 28th and hopefully another really exciting season of Laker football, from your research, from all your conversations with Coach Hilbers and other teams throughout the OAA, what do you think Laker fans should be most excited about as they look forward to their football team in 2025?
Well, obviously Jamal Shakespeare is he is a gifted athlete. There's no doubt about that. I really think if you look at West Bloomfield, the strength of this team is going to probably be their athleticism. Their defensive secondary is very good. They got a very good. The only concern that I have West Bloomfield is the depth up front. Obviously, you got some good linemen there, but if they get hurt, that could spell trouble. Also, Jackson Carver. He's a quarterback that I think a lot of people need to know at West Bloomfield. I know last year he got hurt and didn't play his JV year, but he's back. He's going to be, when I put it this way for West Bloomfield, if Jamal Shakespeare has to play quarterback this year, that's a problem. And I'm not being mean to you, because West Bloomfield is almost eerily similar to North Farmington when you look at North Farmington and, with Terrence James over there. So I really think for West Bloomfield, for them, the key for them is staying healthy. And if they stay healthy, there's no doubt this is a playoff team. But I just think, when you look at the division, it wouldn't surprise me that whoever gets out of that division is going to probably have at least 3 losses.
Yeah, Coach Hilbert said it on your podcast. I was listening to it, and I just can't get it out of my brain. He talked about Jamal Shakespeare. You mentioned him as a quarterback, and he said, it's really tough to refer to him as just a quarterback. He can play so many different positions. So really good point that if Jamal's playing a lot of quarterback, there may be some things that are left on the table for Laker Nation. One more thing we're going to be seeing is outside of the division, really tough matchups for West Bloomfield. What's really interesting, close to home in our community, up the street, Bloomfield Hills, back on the schedule. They got a new coach, one of the all-time greats in southeastern Michigan, in Scott Merchant. How big is that going to be for one of the Lakers' opponents this season, the Blackhawks?
It is a big deal. What Scott brings to this league, obviously we know what he's done at Chip Valley. Obviously he was at UD Jesuit for a time, and then of course obviously at Lawrence Tech. But what Scott brings is he's going to bring accountability. He's going to bring results there. Now, I don't know if it'll happen this year. When you look at Bloomfield Hills, considering the division they're in the blue, but I really think what Scott's going to do, and they got program strength, and that program strength's a big deal there. So it wouldn't be long, I think, until for the Battle of Bloomfield, it's going to be right back in the thick of it again. It will not be very long.
One of the great rivalries in southeastern Michigan, been a little bit dormant over the past decade or so. Perhaps back on its way very soon. Sammy, before we let you go, I want to get your predictions for the Red. Here are what your predictions for your Lake Orion Dragons and, of course, for our Lakers.
When you look at it's hard to predict this division because, you look at last year with Oxford, they were predicted to finish last. Then they went and win the division. So, I really can't really judge it right now. It's early, but, I really think, I want everybody to watch my previous show, and I'll give you my definitive answer there.
All right, you teased it. Where can people see it?
You can see it on the Orion Neighborhood Television YouTube page. We're going to have the preview shows coming up. I'm going to start working on them next week, and we're going to go from there.
Podcast's already up. Each and every coach in the OAA Red and all throughout all divisions of the OAA. Almost every coach on the podcast. Sammy, thank you as always.
Thank you really much.
Stay tuned for more stories about West Bloomfield Lakers athletics on your home for Lakers sports, CivicCenterTV.com. And of course, you can always find us across our social media as well. Just down the road, the Lakers at West Bloomfield Middle School are going to be feeling like they're playing in the big leagues following the installation of a brand new turf athletic field. Kevin McIntosh got an exclusive look at the revamped facility with West Bloomfield School District Assistant Superintendent Jamie Stottlemyre.
The West Bloomfield Middle School football field is a popular spot for outside activity amongst the students. Recently, the field received a major upgrade, which provided a new look and feel for the student athletes and patrons. We recently spoke with Jamie Stoudemire, Assistant Superintendent of Facilities and Operations for West Bloomfield School District, to tell us why the field needed an upgrade.
We had a lot of issues with the old field. The principals would call us quite frequently and tell us about some issues with, divots in the field. There was a lot of weeds on the field, and obviously you don't want to spray a lot of chemicals with kids out here running around. And the other big issue is that, and it's typical with any grass field, is it's difficult to grow the grass because the growing seasons are the fall and the spring, and that's when you have kids out there running around trampling it. So it's really hard to get the grass to grow. And the other issue was ongoing maintenance costs of keeping up a grass field and having to mow it, having to stripe it. There's a lot of costs associated with that. And lastly, it was just the playability. Obviously, we get a lot of rain here in Michigan, so we were not able to use it a lot because of the issues with mud and the water accumulating on the surface.
Jamie further discusses the current status and the benefits of the new turf.
The contractors are very close to having the field done. They actually put in the 40 tons of crumb rubber last week. They still have to disassemble the bridge that they use to cross over the track and to clean up some of their equipment over there, but they're getting really close to having it done. We did start it a little early. We started on May 13th with the hopes of being able to have it done before fall sports. The wonderful thing is the Shaw Game On is the company that we went with for the turf. They have 15 projects going this summer in southeastern Michigan. Ours was the number one out of the gate. So by being first, we were able to ensure that everything was manufactured and brought out here and put in place. And so they were able to complete the job.
We learned about how the West Bloomfield School District incorporated the input of the students for the new field.
Before we actually started the field project, we were able to get a few designs out to the students to vote on, and the students picked their favorite field design, so we incorporated that, which was pretty cool to be able to involve them in the project. Another thing that's nice about the Shaw Game On product is that they're able to tuft the color into the carpet fabric, whereas on a normal artificial turf field, every time there's a color change, those two colors have to be sewn together. But they have a patent on it where they're able to stitch actually weave all the colors into the textile, which allows us to do things that you used to not be able to do. So here you can see, obviously, we have our new Lyle the Crocodile border, which just adds a little pizzazz to the project, a little fun, and it ties in with our new branding with the district. So
a brand new design, shock put area, and turf is right here at the West Bloomfield Middle School to level the playing field for the safety of our students. The fall of 2025 is expected to see the debut of the field with plenty of activities planned on it. From West Bloomfield Middle School, I'm Kevin McIntosh, Civic Center TV.
Not just an athletic field for the middle school. It's also used for practices, sometimes even for games and recreational sports all throughout the school year. Throughout the West Bloomfield School District, high school teams use that as a practice field when there's a busy day on the football field at West Bloomfield High School, or other athletic facilities there as well for the many fall and spring sports, especially those warmer seasons. So definitely going to come in handy. A lot less maintenance with all that foot traffic all throughout the year. More information on this project and others can be found on Facebook and Instagram at West Bloomfield Schools. And of course, all the information you need to know from the West Bloomfield School District is always on their website on WBSD.org. For many kids and even some parents, it's the most dreaded time of the year. Those three words you really don't love to hear in the summer: back to school. A time of transition for all kids throughout Greater West Bloomfield, and a change from the ease of summer back into the grind of a long school year. So, how do we beat the anxiety of entering a new school year? Here with some helpful advice is Dr. Melanie Schwartz from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness. Dr. Schwartz, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on to talk about this. We're still, for some kids, a few weeks away as we're doing this on the live show today. And for others, they may be watching this in the days or even the day before the school year begins. So as we ease out of the summer and we get toward the first day of school, what are some steps that parents and kids alike can take to sort of wind down the summer and get into school mode?
Well, there's lots of things. I mean, we're doing it in my house right now. We're talking about it, making sure they're prepared, making sure they have their school supplies, making sure we're getting them back on a good sleep schedule, getting them into a little bit of a routine that they've been out of all summer. So, kind of scheduling their days a little bit more than they have been. They're going to bed whenever they feel like it and kind of spending probably more time doing things that they're not going to be doing during the school year. So kind of getting them back into, at least for both my kids, actually, their sports have already started for the school year. So that's one thing that they've gotten back into already. So that's been helpful to kind of get them ready for school that starts in 2 weeks. Making sure they have their school supplies, taking them to go get those, if that's something that you do, helps them feel like they have a little bit more control. Talking about lunch, talking about what are they going to want to take in their lunch, helping them have a little bit more control in the situation rather than, this is what's happening, this is where you're going, just deal with it. It's kind of giving them a little bit of the control in terms of helping them get more comfortable with the idea.
Yeah, getting into that different mode of a little less free time, a little less ability to move your schedule around as it is. It's a lot more rigid when you go into the school year. Dr. Schwartz, there's different levels of this too, because kids of all different ages are going to be beginning the school year, whether it's elementary, middle, high school, or even those that are going off to college, university, or other schools for the first time outside of their K-12 education. Let's begin with the younger kids, especially those that are going to be going into kindergarten or into the grades for the first time. They're going to be going into their regular school day in their entire life, be away from their parents. So how do you make that transition? What's some advice in that case for parents that can help their kids and for kids as they get into this new routine?
I think the nice thing that the schools do is that the year before, if you know what school you're going to, they do, offer the kids to come see the school, see the classrooms. And I think that helps. And then having a conversation with them during the summer about what did you like about your classroom? What are you excited about? What are you scared about? I think it also helps, obviously, with all grades, have the opportunity to go to school before school starts. I know my kids get it, the day before school starts, where they can, meet their teachers, go see where their locker is, go, kind of get the lay of the land. Again, if it's a new school, that's really important because it helps them, again, feel like they have a little bit more control if they know what the classroom is going to look like and who their teacher is, and kind of meet the other kids in the class ahead of time to decrease their anxiety about it, because it's all anticipation anxiety. Once they get there and they get settled, they're fine. It's just a matter of not knowing and just not knowing what to expect. So everybody's better if they know what to expect. So the more information you can kind of give the kids, age appropriately, about what is kindergarten like? What are you going to be learning this year? What are you excited to learn? What's that going to be like for them? That's what's going to help the kids adjust and be comfortable.
And especially for those younger kids going into school for the first time, it's that first extended period of time that they're away from their parents.
Yes.
And not just that, but on a regular basis too.
Right.
So for parents that are really close with their younger kids and they have those super strong bonds, what is some advice, especially in these days and weeks leading up to the first day, to help maybe separate that a little bit more and see, get the experience for those younger kids of maybe being away from the parents or being a little bit more independent in this way?
Mm-hmm. I mean, definitely, I think it's different for different kids. Some kids are just going to go off and be perfectly fine and not look back. And they're ready and they're excited to go. And then there's the kids who have a little bit more separation anxiety because they haven't been away from their parents yet. And that, I think it might be important to, if they have some friends, maybe take them over to their friends' houses and let them have a play date over there without you around, or take them over to a relative's house, same thing, without you around, just to kind of get a little bit more comfortable and adjusted to it. It's still not going to be the experience of school, but it's something if you're used to, being with the kids all day long and it's something new. Obviously talking to them, always talking, always communicating with them. I will say that about any of these topics that we talked about today. Making sure that you're talking to them. What are they afraid of? What are they nervous about? What's mom and dad going to be doing while they're at school? You know, and maybe just don't make it too exciting because you don't want them to have any, you know, FOMO. But talking about, you know, again, really making a big deal about what they're going to be doing at school, meeting new people, learning, just make it very exciting for them so it's a place that they want to go. Even if parents weren't big fans of school, making it a big deal for the kids because that's what makes them excited and more ready to get out of the house and go.
Yeah, and making that transition as comfortable as possible for those kids going back. Maybe school's a little bit more of an uncomfortable environment for them at that age. Or, of course, we've been talking a lot about those going in for the very first time. Dr. Melanie Schwartz is with us from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness as we get ready for going back to school in the 2025-2026 school year. We started with the younger kids. Let's go into the middle school kids now. This is a kind of a paradigm shift, sort of the biggest paradigm shift we see other than going in initially to school altogether. Now it's really the first time they get that little taste of independence. Maybe they're going to different classrooms more often. They're certainly going to be blended in with more kids from different schools than what they've been used to for the past 5, 6, 7 years. Before that, what's your advice on helping parents help their kids navigate that big change?
Interestingly enough, 6th graders are usually very excited to go to a different school. They're ready. They had their big send-off in 5th grade. They're done. They're ready to move on. They're ready to be the big kids in, well, the youngest in bigger school, but they're ready to be big kids in a different school. They're kind of their biggest anxiety generally is around all the new kids and making new friends and what that's going to be like. Kids don't often have too many issues with switching classes. They're excited about it. The elementary school's done a good job of kind of prepping them and even, you know, again, took them over to the middle school to see what it was like and kind of they're ready to kind of have this new experience and be different from what elementary school was like. So most of these kids are very excited to go. Again, kids that don't like school, it's a little different of a story. Usually when there's a dislike of school, it's due to separation anxiety, fear of something's going to happen to the parents while they're gone, or, you know, grades are a struggle for them. But they do often, the thing, when you ask those kids what they're excited about, it's about being able to see their friends. So, you know, really hyping up the social piece of it all, even though I think everyone can agree, middle school is probably the most difficult years of the educational system socially, but the kids do get excited for it. So I personally haven't seen too many issues as part of the transition to middle school because the kids are really, really excited about it. But again, as I've said before, I'll say it again, communicate with the kids. Ask them, even if they're not saying anything, even if they seem totally fine, just make sure you're talking to the kids. A lot of parents will say, well, if they're upset, I don't want to like create some anxiety for them, so I don't want to talk about it. But it's more important to talk than not to talk. So just make sure, you know, again, what are you excited about? What are you not excited about? How can I make it easier for you? What can we do ahead of time? So just so that the kids feel like they have more control, because that's what's going to make the transition easier for them.
And you know your kids, you've seen them from the day that they've been born until now. You know their mannerisms. You know kind of when they're not feeling quite right, and you can sense that. Having those conversations is a great way to keep up with that. Dr. Schwartz, you made a really good point, too, that middle school is kind of that most treacherous period of childhood and from a school perspective, particularly on the social side. That can have a big impact on the kids, but that's also a really critical point for parents to have that involvement and have those conversations with their child or with their children and be able to do their part to help them through that as well. What advice do you have for parents in terms of intervening, having those sort of conversations, and helping their kids navigate a really difficult time in their youth?
I would really try to be very involved. Okay. Not in the school, but with the kids during this time, because everyone's maturing at a different rate at this point. You know, you have some kids who have gone through puberty at this point, some who are just about to, some who, are somewhere in the middle. And it gets to be difficult for them emotionally, the kids emotionally, because they're growing at different rates and going through this critical time at such different rates. And emotionally, that has a strong impact on them. So making sure that you are very involved in knowing what they're doing, knowing what their thoughts are, knowing, how they're feeling, how they deal with their emotions, what's going on. If you feel like your kid is not opening up, is, very closed off, doesn't want to talk to you, that's a good opportunity to talk to the school about them maybe talking to the social worker, or even maybe getting them into therapy, where they have someone outside the family who can talk to them and kind of get their feelings out, because it is a really hard time emotionally for these kids during that age range. And the most important thing is just going to be that they're talking and they feel like they can talk to somebody. Again, it doesn't have to be a parent, it doesn't have to be a sibling, it doesn't have to be a family member. Just make sure they're talking to somebody and being able to kind of work through whatever's going on during that time.
Dr. Melanie Schwartz is with us from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness. More information and ways to get in contact with them, viewpointpw.com. As we talk about going back to school, very similar sort of transition between elementary to middle school to high school for kids, but something that maybe isn't looked over too much when you're talking about the psychology or the mental health perspective of going back to school. It's those older high school kids, they've been through the motions, they're used to this, especially those seniors going into their final year. They kind of know what's going to be going on in those last few months of their schooling. Maybe they have their future sort of planned out already, and it's easy for them to sort of lose their focus along the way. Many times we hear about senioritis when they get into that point of the year. So for parents, how do they help to keep their kids focused as they go into their last year of high school, which some look at as being maybe less critical than the other three before, but can really have a big impact on setting them up for going into their adult life?
So this is really tricky at that age, because they're going to push back. They think they know it all, and they don't want anyone telling them what to do, especially their parents when they're seniors. And parents are kind of knowing they still need to parent, and they still need to navigate and kind of push the kids forward to get them to that finish line for whatever that looks like, if they're going to college or whatever that next step is for them. And it's kind of a struggle to figure out how to communicate effectively with the kids. So, there's different approaches to this. It could be completely hands off. You tell the kids, if they're going to college, what you have to do to get into the college that you want to get into, and have at it. And, be there for them if the kids need it, but let them kind of take the lead and prepare them for college a little bit, where you are going to be completely hands off. The other approach that I do see happen sometimes with, the kids who are struggling a bit more, and they do need kind of somebody to lead them and guide them, is, you want to be able to lead them, but again, it's also this struggle of hands off, because, they don't want to be told what to do. So it's kind of how you talk to them is really the key, not what you're saying to them. You're saying the same things to them. You're saying, hey, okay, this is what you have to do. This is when you have to do it. This is where you have to be. Whatever it is that you guys need to talk about, you have to get these grades. You have to, work on your college applications, all of those things. It's just a matter of how you're saying it to them. And if you're saying it to them in a very not controlling way, I guess would be the right way to say it, but kind of like, okay, here's your list. Let's look at it. Let's kind of go through it, but kind of stand a little bit more standoffish than maybe you have been in the past. Then they're going to be more likely to do it. None of these kids, seniors, do not want to be told what to do. They don't. So make sure how you are saying something is the most important. It's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. And I guess that's the key to kind of get through senior year, because they are really ready to go and get out of the house, and they're focused on college. And again, that senioritis thing does kick in probably more second semester than first semester, because they still got to get into college first semester. But it's there, and there might have to be a little bit of kind of just, I don't want to say walking on eggshells, because that's not, I don't want anyone ever walking on eggshells, but kind of just like how you approach it is key. So.
Yeah, kind of that point where you start to remove your hands from their shoulders, guiding them in the right direction, and kind of just walk alongside them and occasionally give them a tap on the shoulder and say, hey, maybe a little bit more this way.
And just let them know you're always there for them. You are there to support them however they need it, but you got to step back a little bit to get them ready for that next stage.
Dr. Schwartz, we thank you for being with us. One last question for you. It's also a big time of transition for parents whose kids are now through high school. They're through their K-12 education. Maybe they're going into the workforce. Maybe they're going to a trade school. They're going to a college or university. That independence is pretty much up to about as close to 100% or at 100% for many of these kids. That's a big transition, particularly for the parents, on top of course, being one for the kids. So for parents that are experiencing this for the first time, letting one of their kids, maybe their only kid, out of the nest and into their own independent life, how do they navigate that transition in a way that is both beneficial, of course, to their child, but also isn't going to be necessarily a major source of anxiety for them that can take a toll on them as individuals or them as co-parents potentially as well?
I think, it's important to realize it's a grieving process.
Yeah.
So it usually starts senior year. And, once the kids get accepted into college, or they've discussed, what that next step is, and if they're going to trade school or they're starting a job, whatever it might be, or they're moving away, whatever it might be, that's when the grief process starts. And for parents to realize that it's a process, and, acknowledge your emotions about it. That's key. Okay. When, because it's a complete transition that you haven't had for 18 years of this child's life. This is new, whether it's, the first child or the last child, somewhere in between, it is still going to be a big change to your life of not having, a child having a child who's now an adult and moving on and starting this new step where you are no longer that your parenting role changes. It looks completely different after that stage. And so talking about it with, the co-parent, how are they feeling? How are you feeling about it? Talk to the kids. How do you want to be parented moving forward? Okay, because what you think it might look like versus what they expect it to be might look totally different. So have that conversation with the kids. As far as parents getting through it, if the kids who are going to college, and let's say you're an empty nester, it's going to be important for you to plan what your life is going to be like. Okay, what is that going to look like? How are you going to move forward without kids in the house? I think I've said this before in the past when we've talked about this, but my sister-in-law did this before, and she's done it every year now that she's an empty nester. She takes a trip once the kids are off to college. That way she's not sad. She's enjoying herself. She's going and doing her thing, and then she comes back and she can kind of reintegrate and figure it all out. But she did something enjoyable and can distract herself for a while instead of sitting at home and feeling sad that nobody's in the house right now, that's been great for her. So, figuring out what activities are you going to, or hobbies or new things are you going to incorporate, and figuring out what is life going to be like without kids if you're an empty nester. If, it's one less child, your structure doesn't change that much. You still are going to be taking kids to school or whatever you have to do, and, still parenting quite a bit, but it's still going to be different without the one child. Another thing, have the conversation with your child if they're moving out, how often are you going to talk to them? Right now you talk to them, I'm guessing, every day, right? Multiple times a day. But when they move out, how often do you expect to talk to them? Because that can be a factor too, where you're expecting to talk to your kid just as frequently, but the kid is like, oh, I'm good once a week, once a month, whatever it is. Have these conversations ahead of time so that you can prepare. Just like any other transition that's happening, going to school, as much as you can prepare, the better off everyone's going to be.
Got to get the kids ready to go back to school. Parents, got to get yourself ready to go back as well. Dr. Schwartz, always appreciate your advice, especially when we have something like this that has a careful balance for everybody involved going back to school. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
ViewpointPW.com is the place to go for more information. That's their website. You can also follow them on Facebook at Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness, and on Instagram at Viewpoint Psychology as well, to get in contact and for consultation. The Future Connect Community Center at West Bloomfield Town Hall's complex is one of the most anticipated amenities on its way to Greater West Bloomfield, with the bond to support the project voted affirmatively by the community just over a year ago. Work is now underway to make the final plans and get construction going in the coming months. Joining us for an update on the project is West Bloomfield Parks Executive Director Kelly Heyer. Kelly, thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. Good morning, Tyler.
Yeah, good morning. Glad to have you on the program with us. You gave an update to the Township Board recently about where the project is at for the community. I'm sure they're very excited a year later after voting through the bond to get an update on where we're looking at for the future of that massive Connect Community Center at the Civic Center complex. This is what was proposed at the time of the bond a year ago. A lot has changed since then. Where's the project at as we speak?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Tyler. But to simplify it, we are still in the planning design phase. So with any kind of construction project, those of you listening at home, maybe you're familiar with the residential update, but on the commercial level, there's a lot more behind the scenes that go into it. And so when the image that was just shown, that was our rendering created a couple years ago in order to prepare for the bonds campaign, the public information that we wanted to share to the voters on what it could be. So after hiring and onboarding our architect firm, our engineer, our landscape architect, as well as our geotechnical engineer, our interior designer, low voltage, things are progressing, and we're able to make better informed decisions given the exact site placement of the building. So right now, it's August. We are in the middle of developmental design, and that means we've gone through concept design as well as schematic design. So the floor plans are settling down. We're focusing on the exterior facade, the materials, how do we break up the big building into smaller sections so it doesn't seem so big on this campus. And what we're talking about is a building that is over 46,000 square feet. So if you measure exterior wall, it is just over 48,000. But the first floor is under 28,000 square feet. And the first floor is bigger than the second floor. However, it encompasses the gymnasium, the welcome center, as well as the nature center on the first floor. And the second floor will be more multi-purpose space and where the staff is, as well as access to the track. So when you fit all those amenities in, and given the site that we have to work with on the campus, the building ended up being very long and linear. And so we've broken the building up into 3 different components. And so right now it is figuring out, all right, do we have the front entrance right? Do we have what we need for that faces the parking lot, that faces the woodland wetlands? And so making all those decisions and making it so that it is, we have the ability to talk about it internally as staff and figure out operational and maintenance-wise, what is the best approach to these different sections. So there's a lot of discussions behind the scenes, Tyler, a lot of intentional meetings. We have a lot of different agendas, different of our consultants behind the scenes having those conversations every day. And then professionally, we report to the commission, staff does. And so then we take all of these decisions that staff is recommending to the commission level. Park Commission has a conversation, discussion, approve what they need to. And then it's what you're referencing Monday night is Park Commission does report monthly to the Township Board on this project because it's a partnership. We have different authority that the Park Commission is allowed with statute, what we can decide ourselves and what we need to take to Township Board. And budget is definitely one thing. Statutorily, we need to report to the township. So that's a long-winded answer, but to very specifically, we are still settling in the design phase and making decisions that with our professionals that we've hired for this project.
And economically, that's the most sound thing to do because you want to make sure you have a pretty concrete plan come your January 2026 estimate for starting the construction phase of this project, especially where we're at in our economy with tariffs and with the supply chain still very much affecting the overall cost of this project and wanting to stay within budget. But Kelly, some of the concepts that were really critical to the design phase and continue to be in this design phase: respect for nature, biomimicry, community outreach, most importantly, being a good neighbor. Those all kind of encompass themselves in some of the key changes to the plan that came into the most recent presentation at the August 11th Township Board meeting. Previously, it was conceptualized to maintain at least a portion, if not the entirety, of the current Recreation Activity Center in the plans for the future Connect Community Center. Now that's different. That building is currently under this plan going to be demolished, mostly to make space for the building to, again, fit that footprint on the Civic Center complex, but also, most importantly, to allow that footprint to be minimally effective on the nature surrounding that building. That was a really critical part and continues to be in your planning phase, correct?
Well said, Tyler. So if you want to show back that rendering or put the rendering back on the screen, on the green side, the west side of the site plan, we are taking down the building. So 3/4 of the building can be put back to nature. What we've noticed is this campus, we need a gathering space. And right now, for example, we have Food Truck Tuesdays that happen in between us and the library, but the food truck has to be parked in the parking lot, and it is not the best design for that. So we're making more intentional gathering space outside our building. And that's to celebrate nature. The trailhead is right there. Our outdoor natural area, play area will be expanded. And it's going to be a better user experience in nature. And we needed to put back more green space on the west side. So that is in the light green there that you can see. And then the other colors that are blacked out, you can see the 3 sections of the building. So the connected to nature makes most sense is the nature center. And on the second floor is staff. And then as you move east, the middle part of the building, that is where you would enter the welcome customer service, multi-purpose space. And then upstairs is senior lounge space, as well as our dedicated gaming room, lecture room, where the furniture can be card tables set up all day. And then the east side of the building, where it is the high school gymnasium, high school size, and that gets you bottom floor where you can do pickleball, our larger group fitness classes, and then the elevated track will be directly above it. And so that is a big space. So if you look on the floor plans, the gymnasium, the track is 1/3 of the building. And so that's where a ton of square footage had to go in that direction. So that's just under 10,000 square feet itself on that right-hand east side of the building.
Yeah, a lot of recreation space still planned in this building. A lot of those original amenities that were proposed, that were discussed pre-bond and were ultimately agreed upon by the township's electorate, still going to be a factor in this. That's what most people on the day-to-day listening today, watching today, or in the future on CivicCenterTV.com want to know about. All these changes, of course, affect the space that these programs will ultimately be in. So what are we looking at right now in terms of where these plans are at, what's sort of been changed, and how those spaces for these amenities are being affected by some of these modifications in the plan at this stage of the process?
Right. So price has to drive much of our discussion. So as you heard in our budget update, both with the Park Commission and Township Board, consideration for tariffs and still putting in a good contingency. We are spending more than we anticipated within the bond dollars, so that warrants a discussion for the other projects we still want to accomplish. So with that said, we still aren't getting exactly everything we want. In fact, the question came up the other night, would you build a bigger building if you could? Absolutely, because we know the residents deserve all the public, multi-generational, recreational and leisure space indoors. But we've had to make some decisions. So we made a couple slices to the building. So it's still going to be very user-friendly. The square footages of the multi-purpose spaces are still great spaces, better than what we have right now. And so if you're at the Recreation Activity Center, that building, the entire building with staff is 8,400 square feet. So if you keep that into context, with the nature center that we currently have and the 2 multi-purpose rooms, we're doubling in the public space as far as square footage, plus adding the gymnasium. So we're still able to have group fitness, Tyler, the lectures, card gaming, the discovery days in the nature center, all of this, and it's going to be better spaces. So right now, unfortunately, you do look at the parking lots. It's very limited windows that we have both here at the recreation activity and the current Connect building that we rent at Simsbury. So we've been able to maintain those square footages. We had to reduce on storage, which goes against our principle in Parks and Recreation, because we just don't like the clutter and the equipment and supplies sitting out. So we've made some really smart decisions how we can do that better. And then we've had to, again, minimize a couple square feet on some of the multi-purpose rooms, but we still maintained everything we promised, plus done better on our circulation in the hallways, the corridors. And we've done better on delivering the requested additional seating and lounge space, like the drop-in space that we heard through our stakeholder conversations that everybody did desire. So we're trying to listen to the residents, still incorporate their ideas and what's important to them. Our instructors are critical in this process, getting their buy-in. But all in all, we've been able to maintain all of those things that we've been able to adhere to. The other great thing is that our landscape architects we've hired have come up with some really creative spaces outside that the campus and our residents are going to be able to use. It's going to be really exciting. We're in the middle of our design development phase. So soon, and we were hoping by the end of the summer, we'll start showing some more of those renderings, all the sides of the building, including some interiors. So stay tuned. Civic Center TV, you'll be the first to know to help us roll out our public update on the building. But we've still got to go through the next couple of weeks and crunch down, make sure that we're getting this right. The rendering that you do see that you've used, that we used in the presentation, is from June. So we've made significant modifications to that. And again, it is based on stakeholder feedback. And we want the people using this building and the staff operating it to be really satisfied to be able to deliver the next 30 years on recreation and leisure services.
Yeah, you want to get this right. You're consolidating all of those different facilities that house staff for West Bloomfield Parks, of course, Connect Senior Center, all that recreation space and more to make this a great amenity centralized at the Civic Center complex. Kelly Heyer is with us, the Executive Director of West Bloomfield Parks, with updates on the Connect Community Center project currently underway right now. They're in the planning phase still, hoping in the coming weeks to have more of these plans locked down, start getting into the permit phase as we get into the fall. And the goal still by the turn of the year 2026 to begin construction on that project. Kelly, a couple more questions for you. It's really important in this also, and you mentioned it briefly earlier on, keeping in mind that this bond was not only for the Connect Community Center, but also for really important projects, kind of smaller projects in scope, but very, very, very important maintenance projects for going forward at some of our parks, including Marshbank. So how much of a factor does that also play, especially on the financial side, the planning side, to make this great extensive building, but not take away from the necessity to still do these other projects?
That's a great question. And to answer that, I want to touch back on the budget process for the building. And if those of you listening at home go back and listen to both Park Commission updates for July, as well as the Township Board update I just gave in August, you'll hear me reference to 3 phases of the budget. So when it comes to this big community center project, we have budget check-in points after each phase of our design. So the next couple weeks, we'll be receiving the design set from our architects and engineers on the design development phase. And so we'll be working with our cost estimators to check in. Are we still on track with the estimated now at $24.5 million for the budget? And that still includes the contingencies. So then what happens to the other projects? Tyler, to your question, what is our approach there? And with Parks and Recreation, we are project managing all day long, whether it's events, all the enhancements that you've seen the last 55 years with West Bloomfield Parks. So we've, for example, you'll hear me reference when we built Lily Pad Springs. That was and a budget that we had saved up for and a project that we knew we were funding internally with prior year funds, as well as the taxpayer dollars that come in. And so that's the same approach that we tackle our capital improvement projects. And we have a 10-year plan that is a rolling plan where we take and look at the park system as a whole, figure out what is our deferred maintenance, what are the enhancements we want to add to, the amenities we add to, what kind of park property do we want to acquire, and all of that is into our CIP project discussion. So with the pickleball courts at Drake Sports Park, the Marshbank Park paving project, as well as the playgrounds we've talked to, the Marshbank paving was the first thing on the list, and we did commence that project August 1st. And the great news about that, when we went into this paving project, we knew it was a 3-year phase, and we had estimated $1 million for each phase. Going off of Drake Sports Park, we had just done that park. And we were really lucky on our bidders. The entire project will be $1.9 million. So it is under budget, and only a third of that project will be paid for by bond dollars. So at this time, there's little wiggle room for that, but we will be figuring out Drake Sports Park as well as the playgrounds in our CIP conversation in the next budget year. So for those residents, rest assured, West Bloomfield Parks, we continue to deliver amazing amenities, and we're really proud that our residents do support us. So there is not a big list of deferred maintenance, and we're able to tackle that. So more to come on that specifically, but we know about it early on and able to strategize with the park commissioners to make sure that our residents get the amenities that we have promised them.
And all the powers that be definitely also a factor in this planning process from the Parks and Recreation Commission. They're overseeing this. They're talking about this in their public meetings, including their televised monthly meetings. So, same goes with the West Bloomfield Township Board. If you want to see those presentations, civiccentertv.com in our on-demand section. The July 23rd West Bloomfield Parks and Recreation Commission meeting was their most recent presentation there. And then the Township Board, they did a presentation with the latest budget information and design information. That's the August 11th meeting. Again, civiccentertv.com. We're joined by Kelly Heyer, Executive Director of West Bloomfield Parks. That's the update on the Connect Community Center. Kelly, thank you so much for your time today.
Great questions, Tyler. Happy to be on.
Glad to have you on, and thank you very much for that update. WBparks.org is the place to go for more information on the Connect Community Center project. You can also follow them for even more progress reports and updates from across the park system, including all their interesting programs all throughout the summer, fall, and the winter, and then later on in the spring as well. WB Parks on Facebook, WB_Parks on Instagram. This weekend at Covenant Baptist Church, the Late Night Writers Room is coming to your hometown. Former Late Night with Jimmy Fallon writer Chris Wineland is bringing his clean comedy special to the church for a night of family fun and laughter. Chris joined us recently on The Splash Live for a special preview of his presentation coming to Covenant Baptist Church this weekend.
Chris Wineland, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kevin. I appreciate this. This is cool.
No, we appreciate you being here, man. I'm already feeling your energy. I love it. And thank you for coming to West Bloomfield, bringing your comedy. And with that being said, let's start off with your energy, man. What kind of energy are you hoping to bring right here to Covenant Baptist Church in West Bloomfield on August 16th?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Kevin. I drink about 300 cups of coffee a day. So that's the energy you can pretty much expect. I'm a morning person. And but even at night, I'm coming at 7 p.m. at night, and I'm going to be wired. I'm going to be excited. The energy is a little relatable, little fun. And I walk into places, and usually people are like, I have a feeling he's a comedian. So that's the vibe I'm going to be bringing.
Yeah, and that is kind of crazy that you mentioned, because you do have that comedic energy, that upbeat, that fun, that funny, and I completely can feel that even through our virtual conversation as well. We're expecting families and life groups to come out to the church and to indulge in your comedy as well. So how does that type of community engagement actually tailor or shape the way that you actually perform in these local settings?
Yeah, so this is what's cool is my comedy is just relatable comedy. So family members come, people that love to go to church come, but then people that have like never been into church, but they've seen me on Dry Bar Comedy or I used to write for Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, a bunch of other TV shows. They'll come in and just have a lot of fun with me because I do relatable comedy. So that's kind of the biggest thing is you'll be able to walk in, you get inspired a little bit. I share some of my story, but it's all weaved in with jokes, and so we really have a lot of fun. Families, everybody can come in, and it's going to start at 7. You can even get VIP tickets, which I think I just give you a candy bar for that, so it'll be fun.
All right, just a candy bar, but that's still a great thing to add on to the comedy that we'll be receiving as well. That's
right.
Hilarious.
That's right.
I'll take that, man. I'm gonna be honest with you, but I want to speak on what you just said too, though. Right, working with Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, that's an incredible feat and part of your journey as well. So in that journey, how do you feel like performing, for these faith-based venues, even to writing Late Night with Jimmy Fallon? How's that evolved how's your comedy evolved since then?
Yeah. So, that was so long ago. I was like 19. So I've been doing stand-up 17 years, and my mom got me into it. She, usually a parent wants you to be a lawyer or a doctor. My mom wanted me to be broke. And so I was like, all right, fine, and I loved it. And I did 200 shows my first year. And then year 2, I got hooked up to do what was called a fax writing at the time, which doesn't exist anymore. But you work on monologue jokes for the show. And so I was able to do that, which was fun. And then that snowballed into a bunch of writing for TV shows. But I just always loved stand-up. I think there's just something to say about you being in front of a bunch of people and having a moment together. And like if you were to come to my other shows that are going on tour this, I start my tour this Friday. If you were to go on tour with me, you would get a different show almost every night because it's all about this experience that you get to have.
Nice. And I love that too. And we want to speak a little bit more into that experience that you are providing with people. But with us right here live on The Splash, by the way, award-winning Christian comedian Chris Weiland talking about being at the Covenant Baptist Church right here in West Bloomfield, August 16th for Clean Comedy Night. Now, I want to talk about the message in your comedy as well. Do you have any themes or messages that you do try to weave into your humor when you're at these events, these community-minded atmospheres as well?
Yeah, and let me just say, Kevin, thank you. The way that you hype me up, I'm like, award-winning, written for this cool stuff. You need to intro me that night.
You deserve it.
Also, I think it's my daughter that's crying. I apologize. I think it's getting figured out. But so with all of that, I think that, yes, I bring a bit of inspiration. I bring a message. I had some crazy things happen in my life, and I think a lot of people do,
Yes.
And there's some healing in humor. I cannot tell you how many times I've done a show and I get off stage and somebody's come up to me and they said, this was the worst week of their life. There's people that they have gone to their mother's funeral and came to a comedy show. I don't even know if I could do that, but yet they walked away with healing and they were like, I needed this. And so, comedy and laughter, it's so healing that it can just completely transform so much.
Yeah. No, and I've heard other comedians speak on that, how people come from very disappointing situations or whatever the case may be in a different mood and then come to a comedy show to kind of lift them up. And entertainment, and a lot of times, I used to work in radio, you would feel like sometimes like you're not doing anything that's really changing lives. But when you get that feedback from people that tell you really helped me during this time, it means a lot. So I completely understand that, and I want to applaud you for that as well. Now with that being said, there has to be a balance, right? You are trying to make people laugh, but you also are putting a message in there. So how do you balance both that humor and that heart in your performance?
Well, I think I learned this. I used to be a pastor as well. So I used to be a pastor. Well, I haven't told the congregation yet. So I figured when they come back, I'll come back. You know what I'm saying? But I have a little bit of that. in my background, and then stand-up comedy. And so I've learned to take my stories and the troublesome things in my life and have the jokes drive the story. So people are listening, they don't even realize that I'm talking about an inspirational thing. And so that's kind of where I kind of dive from, is like, there's some heartaches I've had, some hardships we all have. And so just sharing that up there, but litany of jokes in it.
I could agree with that. And I'm looking forward to it. Sounds like a great time as well. Great inspiration with some humor and some laughter. I love that. Before we let you go, what type of inspiration or connection would you love for West Bloomfield families to take away from your performance?
Oh, man, I would love for them to just be inspired, to walk away and feel like they just had a great time. I really believe in the power of laughter. If you're in West Bloomfield and you're watching this and you're like, I haven't laughed in a long time, bring your family, bring your friends, and just come and enjoy it. Like, this show is for you, not for me. And so you're going to have a blast. And also, I think it's important to know, you can bring kids, you can bring family. Kevin, I'm raising raccoons right now. I don't know if you can hear the chaos in the background, but they got up 5 minutes before me, okay? And I caught them eating salami and cheese. They found the salami and cheese board. I'm raising raccoons, Kevin. I don't know how to deal with this. This is why I'm going to West Bloomfield, Michigan, because and I'm telling you what, I don't know anybody that gets up at 5 in the morning to eat a charcuterie board, but my wild children are doing it. So just come in and laugh with me. I need a break too. That's all. Maybe we can all get babysitters. I don't know, but it's gonna be fun.
When you said, I didn't know whether to take you. So like, is he really raising raccoons, yo, Chris? All right, okay. We already get a taste of the energy that he's gonna bring to West Bloomfield, and I love it. Once again, Mr. Chris Wineland, Christian comedian, award-winning, who will be at Covenant Baptist Church August 16th. Thank you again for your time, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You can get more information, including how to get tickets, on Facebook.com/Chris Wineland Comedy. And again, that show at Covenant Baptist Church on Maple Road in West Bloomfield, 7 p.m. Saturday, August 16th. That is our show for today. I want to remind you that television that's close to home is always online on CivicCenterTV.com and across our social media. Big thank you to our entire crew at Master Control, and for you for joining in at home, at work, and all throughout Greater West Bloomfield. For our entire team, I'm Tyler Kieft. Live, local, social, this has been The Splash Live on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM.